What you're about to witness is the most heartbreaking moment ever captured in Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom. A moment that redefined what justice and compassion truly mean. It all began on an ordinary Tuesday morning, when a 71-year-old grandmother named Dorothy Sullivan was caught shoplifting birthday cake ingredients, and the store owner demanded maximum prosecution. Nobody in that courtroom had any idea that within minutes, their entire perception of right and wrong would change forever. It's 10:30 a.m. inside the Providence Municipal Court. The usual hum of minor traffic cases and petty theft hearings fills the room. Then the bailiff's voice echoes, calling out a name that would soon be known across the world, Dorothy Sullivan. From the back of the courtroom, a frail woman rises. She wears a faded cardigan with mended elbows, a long skirt, and shoes so worn that the soles nearly flap with each step. Her hands clutch a tattered purse pressed tightly to her chest, as though it's the only thing holding her together. But despite her appearance, there's something dignified about her. A quiet resilience that poverty hasn't managed to crush. Dorothy Sullivan, charged with shoplifting from Murphy's Market. The clerk announces. Dot moves slowly to the defendant's stand. Her fingers tremble, her lips pressed together in a thin line trying to hold back fear. Judge Frank Caprio glances up from his paperwork and studies her carefully. In his decades on the bench, he has developed an uncanny instinct for reading people. And what he sees in front of him is not a criminal. It's someone terrified. Someone whose eyes hold more sadness than guilt. Mrs. Sullivan, he begins gently, you're charged with shoplifting items valued at $23.67. According to this report, you took flour, sugar, eggs, butter, vanilla extract, and birthday candles. Is that accurate? Dot nods slowly. Yes, Your Honor, I took those things. I'm guilty. Her voice is small but steady. The courtroom is quiet, expectant. The prosecutor looks ready to move on. The store owner, sitting in the back, folds his arms, still fuming. To him, it's another case of theft. Another example of someone stealing instead of asking for help. But what none of them realize is that those simple baking ingredients hide a story that will break every heart in the room. Judge Caprio sets down his pen and leans forward slightly, a familiar signal that he's about to go off script, to step beyond the mechanics of law and into something deeper. Mrs. Sullivan, he asks softly, have you ever been arrested before? She shakes her head. Never, Your Honor, not once. I worked as a nurse for 43 years. I've never even had a parking ticket. Then why now? He asks. What changed? Dot swallows hard. The courtroom stills. She opens her mouth to speak and the words come out trembling. I live with my grandson Tommy. He's 12. I've had custody of him since. Her voice cracks. Since my daughter and her husband died in a car accident 3 years ago. A hush falls over the room. The store owner lowers his gaze. The prosecutor shifts uncomfortably. Even the court clerk looks up, startled. Judge Caprio's expression softens, but he knows there's still more. Mrs. Sullivan, these items you took. Flour, sugar, eggs, butter, vanilla candles. They're not what most people steal for survival. You weren't stealing food to eat. You were stealing ingredients to bake. Why? Dot's lips quiver. She exhales shakily. Because tomorrow is Tommy's birthday. The words hang in the air like a quiet explosion. For a moment, nobody breathes. Even the court reporter looks up, pen frozen mid-sentence. Dot wipes her eyes with the back of her trembling hand and continues. Your Honor, I get FERS $247 a month in Social Security. After rent, $188.50, we have $397 left. My medications cost $340 a month. Heart problems, diabetes, arthritis, 7 different prescriptions. That leaves $57. $57 for everything else. Food, clothes, electricity, school supplies. Everything Tommy needs. Her voice grows thinner, more fragile with each word. I've been going to food banks. I've skipped meals so Tommy can eat. I've been cutting my pills in half to make them last longer. I even skipped my blood pressure medication last month. Judge Caprio lowers his gaze, doing the math silently in his head. The prosecutor frowns, visibly uncomfortable. The store owner, arms still folded, begins to realize what this really means. Dot continues quietly, but that still doesn't cover birthdays. She pauses. Last month, Tommy's teacher asked the class what they wanted for their birthdays. The other kids talked about PlayStations, pizza parties, fancy cakes. When it was Tommy's turn, he said he just wanted me to bake him a cake like his mom used to. Her voice breaks completely. That's all he wanted, Your Honor. Just a homemade cake. The entire courtroom falls utterly silent. There is no sound but the faint hum of the ceiling fan. I tried to save money. Dot says through sobs. I ate 1 meal a day. I saved $11. But that wasn't enough for everything. When I went to the store, I saw the ingredients his mom used to use. Yellow cake mix, chocolate frosting, those funny candles that relight after you blow them out. He loved those as a little boy. I thought I'd buy what I could afford. But then I saw all of it sitting there together, and I couldn't bear it. I couldn't bear him waking up to nothing on his birthday. The tears streamed down her face. So I took what I couldn't afford. I knew it was wrong. I knew I might get caught. But I thought if I could just give him one happy birthday, It would be worth whatever happened to me. The silence that follows is so deep it's almost sacred. The store owner stares down at his hands. The prosecutor's eyes glisten. Judge Caprio removes his glasses and wipes his face, clearly fighting emotion. Finally, the judge speaks. Mrs. Sullivan, when is Tommy's birthday? Tomorrow, Your Honor. October 25th. Judge Caprio nods slowly. You broke the law. That's true. But this court cannot ignore why you broke it. He turns to the prosecutor. Counselor, what is the state's recommendation? The prosecutor stands. Your Honor, given the circumstances, the state recommends dismissal with restitution, when financially possible. But before the judge can speak, he turns toward the back of the courtroom. Mr. Murphy, he says. You're the store owner, aren't you? You demanded prosecution. Would you like to address the court? Michael Murphy, a heavy-set man in his 60s, stands slowly. His face, once firm with indignation, is now pale. He clears his throat. Your Honor, he begins quietly, when my staff caught Mrs. Sullivan, I was angry. I thought, here we go again. Another thief. I told them to press charges because I'm tired of people stealing. But I didn't know. I didn't know about Tommy, about the cake, about any of this. He wipes his eyes. If I had known, Your Honor, I would have given her the ingredients. I would have baked the cake myself if I had to. The entire courtroom feels the shift. That powerful moment when anger gives way to empathy. Murphy takes a shaky breath. I'd like to withdraw my complaint, Your Honor. And more than that, I'd like to give Mrs. Sullivan a $500 gift card to my store. I'll deliver the cake ingredients to her myself tonight. And from this day forward, I'll make sure she and her grandson never go hungry again. Weekly grocery deliveries. No charge. Applause erupts. Even the bailiff claps. Dot covers her mouth, sobbing uncontrollably. Judge Caprio waits for silence. Mr. Murphy, that's incredibly generous, and I'm going to add to it. He turns to Dot. Mrs. Sullivan, I'm dismissing all charges. You have no criminal record, and you never will. Catholic Charities will contact you about assistance programs. I'm calling the housing authority personally about reducing your rent, and a social worker will help lower your medication costs. Dot can hardly breathe. Thank you, Your Honor, she whispers. But Judge Caprio isn't done. One last thing, he says softly. Tomorrow is Tommy's birthday. Where is he right now? At school, Your Honor. Robert F. Kennedy Elementary. Judge Caprio smiles gently. Go home today, Mrs. Sullivan. Use that gift card. Bake Tommy the best birthday cake he's ever had. And tomorrow after school, bring him here to my chambers. I have something for him. The courtroom bursts into applause once more. But what's about to happen next, over the next 24 hours, will take this act of kindness to a level no one could have predicted. That afternoon, word of what happened in Judge Caprio's courtroom spread through Providence faster than anyone could imagine. A local reporter who had been covering municipal hearings posted a short clip of Dot's testimony online, and within hours it was everywhere. By evening, hundreds of people were reaching out, asking how they could help the grandmother who stole baking ingredients for her grandson's birthday. But Dot didn't know any of that yet. As she left the courthouse, Michael Murphy, the store owner who had once wanted her prosecuted, walked beside her carrying 2 grocery bags filled to the brim. Inside were not only the ingredients for Tommy's birthday cake, but also fruits, meats, vegetables, and enough food to fill her tiny kitchen cupboards for weeks. He insisted on driving her home, and when she tried to refuse, embarrassed, he said simply, "Please, Mrs. Sullivan, let me do something good today." When they arrived at her small apartment, neighbors peeked through their doors, watching curiously as Murphy helped her carry groceries inside. He didn't stay long, just long enough to make sure she was settled. But before leaving, he pressed the $500 gift card into her hand. "Happy birthday to Tommy," he said, his voice breaking. That evening, the smell of cake filled the air in Dot's small kitchen. She mixed the batter carefully, humming softly through tears. The old oven rattled as it heated, the sound mingling with the hum of the refrigerator that always threatened to quit. She baked the cake just like her daughter used to. Yellow with chocolate frosting, topped with the funny candles that never stay out no matter how hard you blow. When she finished, she stood back and looked at it through teary eyes. It wasn't perfect. The edges were uneven, the frosting a bit lumpy, but it was made with everything she had left, her love, her hope, her faith. That night, Tommy came home from school to find the cake waiting for him. "Grandma," he gasped, "you made it?"
Just like Mom used to.
He hugged her tightly, his small arms wrapping around her frail frame. Dot smiled, trying not to cry. For one night, poverty didn't matter. Bills didn't matter. All that mattered was the look on Tommy's face as he blew out the candles and laughed when they flickered back to life again. The next morning, the story had exploded. The video clip had 800,000 views and rising. News anchors were calling it the birthday cake case. Donations flooded in. Strangers wanted to pay Dot's rent, cover her medication, and sponsor Tommy's school supplies. Providence became a city united by one grandmother's courage. That afternoon, as promised, Dot and Tommy walked back into the courthouse. Tommy was nervous, clutching his grandmother's hand tightly. When they entered Judge Caprio's chambers, he stopped in astonishment. The room was filled with people. Court staff, police officers, firefighters, city workers, community members, and even Michael Murphy himself. In the center stood a long table covered with wrapped gifts, a new winter coat, schoolbooks, and a bright red bicycle with a big ribbon tied to the handlebars. "Happy birthday, Tommy," Judge Caprio said, smiling through tears. "Your grandmother loves you more than anything. She risked everything just to make sure you felt special today." Tommy's eyes widened. "Are all these for me?" "They are," the judge said, "and they come with a message. You're not alone, son. This entire community is behind you." Tommy turned to his grandmother, his voice trembling. "Grandma, did you get in trouble because of me? Because you wanted to make me a cake?" Dot knelt slowly, her knees aching, and took his face in her hands. "No, sweetheart. I made a mistake, but it brought us blessings we never imagined. Look around, Tommy. These people care about us. You didn't cause trouble. You brought love back into our lives." Tommy wrapped his arms around her and whispered, "I love you, Grandma." She held him close as the entire room clapped, wiping their eyes. For Judge Caprio, it was unlike any case he'd ever handled. In more than 3 decades on the bench, he had seen pain, anger, despair, but never a moment that so purely captured the power of mercy. Over the next few weeks, everything began to change for Dot. Catholic Charities reduced her medication costs by 75%. The housing authority lowered her rent from $850 to $385. Food deliveries from Murphy's Market arrived every week, right on time. She began eating properly again, taking her medicine regularly, and within months her health improved dramatically. Her blood pressure stabilized, her energy returned, and for the first time in years, she could sleep without fear of what tomorrow would bring. Tommy flourished too. The school enrolled him in after-school programs and provided free lunches. Teachers inspired by his story began tutoring him personally. He joined the chess club, discovered a gift for mathematics, and started dreaming about a future beyond poverty. The local police and firefighters adopted him as their honorary junior officer. On weekends, he'd visit the firehouse or help with community projects. He started smiling more, laughing more, believing more. 1 year later, on his 13th birthday, Dot and Tommy were invited back to Judge Caprio's courtroom. The judge had just one request, that they both share how their lives had changed. When Dot entered the room this time, she didn't shuffle. She walked with confidence. Her hair was neatly done, her eyes bright. She looked a decade younger, the wear of hardship replaced by gratitude. "Your Honor," she said, her voice clear and steady, "I wanted to thank you, not only for dismissing my case but for seeing me as a person, for reminding everyone that good people sometimes make desperate choices when they're trying to protect someone they love." Judge Caprio smiled warmly. "Mrs. Sullivan, you taught us all something that day. Poverty isn't a moral failing. It's a circumstance, and love, especially a grandmother's love, is one of the most powerful forces on earth." Tommy stepped forward, now taller, more confident. "Judge Caprio," he said, "I want to be a lawyer when I grow up. I want to help people like you helped my grandma." The judge's eyes filled with tears. "That's the best thing I've heard in years, Tommy. Study hard, stay kind, and when it's time for college, come see me. We'll make sure you get there." Michael Murphy, standing in the gallery, raised his hand. "And Tommy," he said, "when you're ready, there'll be a job waiting for you at my store. Learn the business, and when you go to college, I'll give you a 5,000 scholarship. It's the least I can do for a family that reminded me what generosity truly means." The applause that followed wasn't just for Dot and Tommy. It was for every person in that courtroom who chose compassion over condemnation. The birthday cake case went viral across the world. Law schools began using it to teach about judicial discretion and the human side of justice. Social work programs analyzed it as an example of how poverty drives impossible choices. Churches and community groups shared it as a story of faith, redemption, and the simple power of kindness. But beyond all the media coverage and the viral fame, what mattered most was the lasting change it inspired. The Providence City Council launched new assistance programs for seniors raising grandchildren. Grocery stores began partnerships with food banks. Schools expanded free lunch programs. And countless individuals moved by Dot's story began volunteering to support families on the brink of crisis. Years passed. Dot continued shopping at Murphy's Market, now as a customer who paid with ease. She and Murphy became close friends, often laughing about how fate had brought them together. Every year, on Tommy's birthday, Murphy personally delivered a cake to their home, yellow with chocolate frosting and those same funny candles that never went out. Tommy grew into an exceptional young man. He earned a full scholarship to Boston College, then went on to Georgetown Law. When he passed the bar, the first person he called after his grandmother was Judge Caprio. "Your Honor," he said through joyful tears, "I did it. I'm a lawyer, and I'm going to help people, just like you helped us." Judge Caprio, now older but as kind as ever, smiled softly on the other end of the line. "Tommy," he said, "I always knew you would. You're Your grandmother's courage and your determination prove that the human spirit can overcome anything. Remember, when you're in that courtroom, don't just see a case file. See the person. The video of that original hearing has now been viewed more than 15 million times. It's used in classrooms, shared in churches, discussed in courtrooms. But for those who were there that October morning, it remains something even deeper. A reminder that justice without compassion is hollow, and that sometimes, the kindest act a judge can perform is simply to understand. Dorothy Sullivan wasn't a criminal. She was a grandmother who refused to let poverty steal her grandson's childhood. Her desperate choice didn't make her guilty. It made her human. And because one judge chose to see her humanity, her story became proof that mercy can change lives. In the end, this wasn't just a story about theft or punishment. It was about love, dignity, and the belief that even in the darkest corners of hardship, goodness can still rise. That day in Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom, the law was upheld, but so was humanity. And that balance between justice and compassion is what turned a grandmother's act of despair into one of the most powerful reminders of hope the world has ever seen.